Welcome to Manor Park Classics. After another successful and busy October auction, which was our second two-day auction, our team were busy, as always, working the third stage of our three-stage sale process, and we're here to give you an update on those lots that have sold since then. So first up with the cars, we have lot number 16, the 1928 Hadfield Bean. This rare vintage tourer was believed to be the only one in existence and is in fine condition and has a very interesting history which has been known since 1936. And it was sold for £15,000. Next up, lot 17, the 1955 Singer 4AD Roadster. This well-presented example was one of the last Roadsters produced. It was driven some 160 miles to the sale room and was supplied with full weather gear and a comprehensive history file. And it was sold for £8,500. Next up, lot 27, the 1972 Fiat 500F. This UK-supplied home market example had been subject to a comprehensive restoration, which included a complete respray, mechanical overhaul and a new interior. And it was sold for £9,000. Next up, lot 46, the 1938 Sunbeam-Talbot 10. This attractive-looking pre-war Drophead example was thought to be the second oldest Sunbeam-Talbot in the UK. It came with an original buff logbook, which showed one of the previous owners who bought the car in 1949 was the very aptly named Mrs. Olympia Letitia Honeyball, and it was sold for £5,200. Next up, lot 48, the 1998 Caterham Super 7. This attractive-looking example was finished in the classic colour combination of green and yellow. It came with an extensive service history, weather gear and tonneau, and it was sold for £12,000. Next up, lot 72, the 2000 Rover 200 BRM. Finished in an individual colour with a beautiful interior, which are all individual to the BRM. There was only 750 examples built, of which this was number 44, hence the very aptly private plate on it of N44 BRM. And that was sold for £4,500. And now we move on to the motorcycles, and first up was lot 209, the 1990 Ducati Passo. This example was part of a large private collection of motorcycles, and it was a nice project for someone to bring back to its former glory. And it was sold for £1,500. Next up, lot 223, the 1994 Suzuki GSXR1100. Finished in a great colour scheme, this very tidy example came with new tyres, current V5C and a pillion seat. And it was sold for £2,500. Next up, lot 228, the 1976 Honda CB750. This UK example had covered 28,000 miles and was ridden to us by the vendor who had been using it recently for sunny Sunday rides. And it was sold for £3,000. Next up, lot 244, the 1959 Matchless G12. This example was entered by a local collector who has maintained it at a very high standard, meaning it was fully running and rideable. And this was sold for £3,300. Next up, lot 267, the 1962 Ducati TS175. This example had been subject to a lovely full restoration and had been a display piece in the vendor's living room and only taken out on short rides when the sunshine dictated. And it was sold for £3,000. Next up, lot 270, the 2001 Yamaha YZF. This example had been supplied from a private collection and was a Swiss import and covered only 5,000 kilometres from new. And this was sold for £1,900. Next up, lot 272, the 1966 Ducati Monza. This example had been subject to a fully documented restoration totalling over £3,000 and had covered only 280 miles since the rebuild. And this was sold for £2,900. And last up, lot 292, the 1969 Bridgestone 175. This example starts and runs and had been ridden recently by the vendor and was accompanied by paperwork including V5, and this was sold for £1,400. So there you have it, the third stage of our three-stage sale process, which is unique to Manor Park Classics. If you'd like to consign and see why we believe no one works harder for their vendors, please get in touch for our next auction, which takes place on the 7th and 8th of December.